Hello. Well, I guess one of the daunting aspects, or not necessarily daunting, but disappointing aspects maybe for a lot of guys is when they get into menswear, they think I can really kind of only express myself through, a tie and maybe a pocket square. I mean, the good news being there's tartan, right? One of the one of the patterns that skirts the line between expressive and conservative. Um, Other patterns being, maybe bolder and wilder, but tartan certainly can be. I decided I'm going to break this up into two videos, though, and we're going to talk more specifically about kilts, especially how, some kilts are just more vibrant than others because we're talking about acrylic fabric, which has a brighter texture, is not quite the right word, but along those lines, the dyes tend to be more radiant, I guess, and most of the time that's not a good thing per se, but a lot of guys are kind of. Well, I think it's a little easier now because there's more and more content like this starting to surface that can tell you, okay, this one good, this one bad. When I first was interested in kilts, it was so long ago there was no internet, so I'm not going to talk about that too much. But you'd go to the store and the woman would tell you things like, well, the wool has to be Scottish wool or it won't take the pleats correctly. And you'd think that sounds like made up. That can't be right. I've seen skirts that are pleated and they exist, on, girls. But as you get more into the thing, you start to say, okay, she wasn't completely pulling your leg, we'll get into that in a little bit. So then later on, I go on Amazon many, many years later. That is, within the last decade. And all of a sudden there's kilts there. And you think, oh, I could have had kilts for a while now. And I just didn't realize it. Okay, 35 bucks. That sounds completely reasonable. Nothing like the, $800 or whatever the woman quoted me back, in the 90s or so. The Now I'm speaking, of course, about the tailored kilt with the sewn pleats and the straps and the buckles, not the great kilt, which is getting some traction now apparently. Um, the great kilt, well, if we're gonna it's obviously a more historical garment, but I would say overall in some terms a less practical one because you don't have to put it out on the floor and roll around on it like the the you can actually kind of pleat it on a surface like your bed, and you don't have to necessarily pleat it to any particular stripe. You can kind of roll pleat it a little bit if you want more of a rugged kind of look. But if you go to a festival or something and you have to use the restroom and all this kind of comes undone, you're gonna have a tough time finding a clean surface that isn't the dirty floor or a murky counter, to kind of rebunch this thing together to get it back on if you don't know what you're doing. I don't know who's going to help you with that. So in terms of practicality, in that sense, I've never been brave enough to want to wear a great kilt to certain functions. Um, and so I was again on Amazon as a total sort of novice, I guess, as a clothes wearer for the first time. Like just well, this one's called the Irish pattern. I guess this must be the one, and I don't have that one here anymore. I have a similar texture, a couple of things. Like, I don't know if holding this up does any good, but this is one of the patterns I got. When I first got a kilt of this pattern, it had a beautiful dark brown. It was actually a wool blend, not a total acrylic. And that's when I learned that trying to match accessories is going to be nearly impossible because I got this and because I didn't understand that a fly plate is supposed to be something. I'm calling it plaid because most of the content I watch calls it plaid. Some still call it a plaid. Uh, This is a ceremonial wedding garment that should rarely be worn pretty much by anybody but a groom, and two, uh, should not be worn in acrylic fabric ever, and three, should match your kilt. So that's typically why you buy the things at the same time. But with fabric, I mean, apart from just looking at it and not liking the tan color as much as the brown color, um, every now and then the tartans will be slightly different, but the tartan here was the same. This is a fashion tartan, as they call them, when it's not associated um, with a clan chief permission or whatever. Um, but basically, with fabric, you can kind of hold it up to the light and see how tight a weave or how loose a weave it is. This this actually was a kilt until enough of the stitching came out of the pleats, and I basically pulled the thing apart. Um, this one was constructed slightly better than the green one that I had. I really did like this pattern, and at the time it was actually pleated to the stripe, which is very rare in a $40 kilt or whatever. But you can see it's got little snags and pulls and things. You're not supposed to have stuff like this. You can really do too much with you know good fabric. Um, Here's another one. Sometimes you'll get that anyway. This is where they've knotted. This one I can feel the knot, and you'll get that on good cloth too, uh, where they've had to knot the two ends together. You can't always do anything about that, but the fuzziness that you get with these, the upside is you can throw these in the wash, and I literally have. And with just a length of cloth like this, I can still wrap myself in it if I wanted to, or I can use it as a half kilt still with a belt, even though it's got a big hole where the buckle hole was for the strap to pass through. But let's see if I can, yeah, you can get a kind of a sense of the texture of the fabric a little bit, but it doesn't have a hem. That's one of the things, but it's not going to hold a pleat for very long. You can see that the fabric is literally just one trip in the washing machine, and all the pleating evidence is just completely wiped away. You'd have to iron it pretty heavily to want to try and make it look pleated again. I got a kilt. I don't have it anymore in this pattern, another fashion pattern where they've taken black watch and substituted in brown for blue. But here the material is a bit. Let me find the end. I don't know if you can actually see the texture, but you can kind of feel the texture more. So it's a little heavier, denser weave than the previous. It's a little less flyaway. So fortunately, the first two kilts I had were literally that very very not sturdy material. They were, like I said, they were about $40, and then for an upgrade for about $60, I got slightly better material. The problem was when I switched to this company, the material was very hit or miss. I didn't always get this material. I ended up getting that maybe 2 or 3 times. This one, which, oh, what a coincidence, matches my cheap tie. But a very nice tartan. This is the same material as the brown watch, and I still have this kilt because nobody's bought it yet because it doesn't fit me anymore. um, so again, another Amazon purchase. This one a slightly different material. Here it's a black watch, but you could almost never tell it's a black watch from a distance because the patterning has gotten so small. That's one of the disadvantages with the acrylic and other budget kilts is they tend to manipulate the tartan sizes, not always intentionally, but sometimes intentionally. And this one looks, I mean, it looks like black watch, and it matches this kind of small pattern hat that I had or whatever. So I thought it looked okay. And this one has a nice soft fabric texture. So I didn't feel like I got, a bad deal when I first got this one, but this is probably like the third kilt I got. And I got a red Stuart one at the same time that I no longer have. But they have the acetate lining, which gets sweaty and slimy. That's definitely a corner they cut. The leather on the straps is decent for any kind of kilt in this range. You're going to get leather like this that you're going to have to replace sooner than maybe something more robust, but not the end of the world. I've put this in the washing machine, and I just don't put it in the dryer for more than 10 or 15 minutes, and the acrylic fabrics typically dry by then, and then I let the leather air dry instead of trying to dry it all out. But then going back, I found another company that was even more expensive, and they do have more of a canvas lining, but an even cheaper fabric. So I definitely overpaid on a couple. I have, I think, two from this brand where they kind of did that, and you can see maybe the furriness of it, the fuzzy texture. Not so good on the camera, but trust me, in person, you can see that. I think this one might have been in the washing machine once, but I don't think I ever wore it to a festival. Typically with this material, you wear it one day and it's already furry as all get out on the front from your sporin rubbing against it all day, your sporin chain. You might even end up with a hole like way sooner than you thought you would. But again, I think I paid $100 for this, and so if you're only just starting out and you don't have $400 to drop on a garment, I can't completely say that they're all terrible. Some are just better than others. Some are just priced better than others. Similarly to that, this one I literally bought back again in the $60 range. The fabric here is still a little bit shiny, but it's not. It's an acetate, but it's got a little maybe nicer texture slightly to the other acetate. The difference here, same as the black watch, what I was going to say earlier, it does have a hem instead of that fake sort of selvage edge. And so that will really, you're already dealing with fabric that doesn't like to hold a pleat very well. Here it's going to hold the pleat even worse. It's a thin material, so the hem here doesn't affect it too badly, but you're still never going to get quite a nice crisp pleat that's going to last, more than a day or two. But I tend to buy kilts like this to use literally for having yard sales and cleaning out the garage and stuff. I'm not usually wearing, but again, we got the super bright yellow, pretty bright red, tartan, This is one of my like all-time favorite patterns, but I just, couldn't spend the money at the time on another kilt. And so I got this cheap one with all the pills and piles, and of course it doesn't fit very good, so I haven't worn it yet. It's kind of a weird thing where they'll use, I think they'll use like a certain measurement for the pleating for a range of sizes, and then the aprons they'll adjust to kind of go with that. So the back will be the same almost exactly on a bunch of these, if they all came from kind of the same company. And then the straps will be in kind of the wrong place though, and it'll always never quite fit right. So you're like, no, I bought the size. I even bought a size up from the previous one, but the previous one in the smaller size fits better someday. It's just kind of a goofy. Again, you're dealing with garments for under $100, so you're not, getting that much consistency. Whereas this one, on the other hand, that I bought at the same time as that one, is basically the exact same thing, but with rougher fabric. Again, you didn't know which one you were going to get, but this one fits great. So do I wish this one had the nice soft fabric? Yes. Do I wear this one pretty often? Yes. Do I like it as much? Not even close. It's called Scottish kilt, which is almost an oxymoron because they're literally, from Pakistan. And I don't think all of the Pakistan kilts are the worst, again, because this one has much better straps than the other one. It's been in the washing machine. You can see that the straps are actually decent. I might actually take these off and put them on a different kilt when I finally, blow through this kilt like I did with the purple one, which I still have the straps somewhere, but they're nowhere near as nice as this. Um, the sewing on it isn't terrible. Like I said, it actually fits very well. The fabric is absolutely terrible. It's worse than the other, two of the other three fabrics I just showed, with the exception of well, it's at the bottom now, the mega cheap stuff. So it's kind of hit or miss. I'd like to say you get what you pay for, but in this range, you don't always. But yeah, I mean, I got another one from this company that I have pictures of me doing my Andy Stewart routine for a lark. That thing was a horse blanket. I absolutely hated it. I literally sold it for $20 just to get it out of my house. Like it was horrible. Whereas this one, yeah, like I said, I can wear it around in the summer and it's comfortable enough. Moving up from the acrylic range, finally. Now, I know I spent a ton of, but literally when I bought all these, I looked at the cost of a real kilt, real meaning, a proper Scottish mill or English mill. And I said, I can get 10 for the price of one of those. Again, I was totally new off the boat, hunting on Amazon, looking for bargains, not knowing what quality even meant in a kilt per se. I mean, originally I knew it was just a blanket that you wrap yourself in, but I was trying to navigate. Like I said, I knew I didn't want just the blanket because that's inconvenient in daily wear. Although I didn't, um, like I said, well, I didn't know where to find the blanket ones yet either. But turns out that the company that I was just holding up, which is different than the first company I bought from, that company does actually offer fabric that you can just buy by the yard. So if you just want a blanket that's acrylic or whatever, I guess you can get it from them, or a couple other companies that sell them, listed as great kilt, and they might have some more options. I got a length of fabric for about $70 from them in a different tartan, but it's still the same sweat your butt off material. It does not breathe. It does not relinquish. It does not relent. Relinquish being the wrong word. So anyway, this other company, I thought they were working overtime to bring these things to me. It turns out they were more of an import distribution thing, but they had there's I found out, well, they discontinued this particular fabric, but there's another company in, I think, Wisconsin that carries it. But on Amazon, also for a higher price, I had come across UT Kilts in Utah, and for the most part, I've been pretty satisfied with this stuff. Like I said, he discontinued this material. He had two straps, these kind of cheap, flimsy ones, and then on the heavier duty kilts, he had these better, heavier duty straps. I wish I had cut the heavy duty straps off a couple of the ones for, again, in the future maybe. These are holding up pretty good though. This kilt's been in the washing machine. It's in a. He was saying they were 100% wool, and they're not. There's no way. The texture is not terrible. It's not too itchy when you're sitting around. It can be. It still has an acetate lining. The other company was charging way more for these. He was offering these as his budget line, so I think these were about $100 at the time. The other company I think is running at about 150 for, I'm positive, the exact same kilt. But again, it's got a hem and it's a thicker fabric than the acrylic. So I literally wore one of these to a festival, I don't know, 10 months ago or something. And when I got out of the car, the pleats just literally did this like thing where it's like pleats are supposed to be kind of uniform and regimented, not we're at the circus. I don't know how else to describe it. This one, on the other hand, it's held its pleats pretty well for all the yard sales and kind of things I've done with it. I've worn this one a few good times. It was to I don't know. I kind of got it to replace another one that I liked the tartan a little better that just didn't fit anymore. That's the one of the great oh, you're not supposed to wear any tartan besides this tartan. I have it on good authority, reaffirmed even recently that Scottish people aren't that worried about it. Similar to that one, then, just for show, I also have this exact same fabric in a different tartan. Again, this was one of the very first ones I got that I barely wore. It's a size too small, but I can still kind of squeeze into it. But I'm just not that much into black. At the time I bought it because I was like, oh, a kilt. Okay, there's one more kilt for $100 that I don't kind of have. I guess I'll get this one. And it looks nice for if you're gonna wear it with like a nice charcoal sweater or something. I'm just not that much of a black clothes guy, like I said in video 3, I think. So it doesn't get as much use as it probably could along. But yeah, I guess I'll go with this one first. What I was saying, although now we're going slightly chronologically out of order, back to UT kilts. I have several or had several in his what he called 8-yard, which for my size I think was more like about 6 yards of fabric. I found out that was a little too bulky for California. The 8-yard was not that comfortable to be lugging around all this extra fabric, so I think I got rid of a couple of them. But here we've got a cloth lining, which is much better. Kind of the same straps. He did away with the heavier duty ones that I preferred. The heavier duty ones were a little harder to get on and off, but I think these are just going to wear out faster. This is another material that he says is 100% wool, and you can really feel the texture of this one compared to the previous one or two actually, that this is definitely not 100% wool. They are machine washable though, which is fine. I wore this to a festival in a very warm city last year, and came home and popped it in the wash, and like I said, didn't have that slimy acetate feeling, getting as much sweat on my shirt as with the other model. And you can see there's no hem here. We have what passes for a selvage edge, and what the big difference here being the set size, again, way small for what a 16-ounce wool set size would typically look like. These white stripes would be much farther spaced apart. These blue stripes should be a little wider. From a distance, you can barely tell what tartan this is, except that it has bright white stripes, which I don't even really care for bright white stripes. When I ordered it, I kind of had in mind what the regular tartan would look like versus the modified. I don't think they're actually saving any money or saving any colors doing it this way. So why they manipulate them so small, I'm not really sure. I mean, yeah, you're working in slightly more white and slightly less blue, but overall, the amount of green you're using is still kind of the same, I would think. So whatever, but it doesn't look, terrible. Like nothing is zigzaggy or anything. It still looks like a tartan. It's not the end of the world. Contrary to that, this one I got a while ago, and here's another one. Now this one you can just see it's like this is a polyester that I think this is what some brands call a polyviscose, and it's like twice as heavy as that one. It does have all those pleats. I mean, it really literally has. I'll show the emblem, and the feel of it, the weight of it, very, very closely does mimic real wool. But again, I don't want to lug this much around most of the time. If you really, really, really didn't want to own wool, you're allergic or whatever, I wouldn't say this was a terrible option. It does still have a hem, and so the pleats are still going to be a little bit bulkier, but they've hemmed it up a little farther than some of the other ones, and the material is not super thick where it's in, like I said, doing the Watusi or whatever. And it has, what they've done that's cheap though that I really don't like is they've tried to make it 2 sizes fits all by just adding extra long straps. And all this does is look stupid. I really keep meaning to go the next time I wear it and just cut this strap off to where it should be, because I'm not using past these holes anyway. If I was using way out in these holes, I think you'd be seeing way too much gapping where your side apron pleats are running and that sort of thing. And I liked this pattern. I didn't like it as much as the previous purple one I showed you. With the previous purple one is some made up pattern that apparently only comes in like Pakistani acrylic for some reason. As far as being, traditional, I guess some people might think the purple is, less traditional because they're used to seeing the blue and green or whatever. Actually, there's a quote that, and from like the 1500s or something that says that Scots love wearing purple and blue, or purple and green rather. This blue should be green, I guess, if you were a traditional plant dye. And where the purple I came from, I don't know. Anyways, sorry for there's no delay for you because I can edit. But this, you can see it's got 2 lines of white. So it's twice as much white lines as I don't really want. Whereas on this original one, it's actually meant to be a saltire with the cross. So that was part of the appeal to me. Neither of them has enough green in it. But most guys prefer blue to green. So I guess that's kind of what they based that decision on, because it's just a nice complementary thing rather than, green, green, green. One of the problems with tartans is a lot of times you have too many colors just fighting with each other, like the one I was holding up earlier, the McDonald, where, is it the red that's the important one, or the other two are kind of the same tone or whatever, and the red kind of jumps out a little bit more. But no super bright yellow to really stand out as much. And you may have noticed that the purple on the acrylic one was a lighter purple. I don't know if that was intentional or a happy accident. So you can almost kind of see the green. But I have some pictures. When I got, the first couple, it was, shutterbug time. What will this go with? Mix and matching, trying different outfits and stuff. I'm a little less, camera happy now when it comes to these things. A couple of these I don't have, photos in them even yet. It's like, why? I'm just literally wearing this to do yard work and water the lawn. This is going on much longer than I thought it would too. I guess that's life. I guess I have to leave a few things for the second video, even more than I thought I would have to leave for the second video. I will, however, address also the inexpensive, kilt shirt or Jacobite shirt or whatever they want to call it. It's, non-historical garment. It comes usually with a leather string tie that some guys put in and Some guys don't. These are like $20. Again, you buy the first one and then you kind of feel silly. I haven't even worn it. But you know, you can get you feel like you're supposed to have a color that matches your tartan kind of sometimes, and then you grow out of it maybe. I don't know. I tend to be hit or miss depending on my mood, how much, you know, matchy I want to be to, you know, not go into that all day. I'm trying to think. I mean, a shirt is a shirt, you know. The biggest thing I had was, you know, like I said, trying to find accessories that properly match, which gets into a whole topic that I think we're going to probably have to save for the next one for now.